Mtonga YouTube channel. Subscribe, share, and like. We come once again to ordinary level chemistry, and today we look at particulate nature of matter. In the first lesson, in the introductory lesson, we looked at chemistry as a science that looks at the composition of matter, its properties, and its reactions. So today we are just going to look at that aspect of particulate nature of matter, to see what matter is made up of. Okay, and therefore we have the following objectives. Number one, state that matter is made up of ions, atoms, elements, and molecules. The second objective, to explain that matter can be classified as a solid, liquid, and gas. Then the third objective is to describe the changes of state as melting, boiling, and freezing. Now, let us look at the first objective. Let me just clear this part so that I can do some scribbling if there will be need to do so. Under the first objective, which is to state that matter is made up of ions, atoms, elements, and molecules, or just briefly to look at the composition of matter. First of all, we have to define what matter is. So the definition of matter, the basic definition of matter is that matter is a substance that has mass or occupies space. Or sometimes people prefer to say is a substance that has weight and occupies space. And now, what is the composition? At a particulate nature level, that means matter is also made up of big particles and small particles. Now, what are these small particles? Now, the small particles, for example, we have ions. When we say ions, these are charged particles of matter. Charged particles of matter. So matter can carry a charge. That means positive or negative charges. So matter can exist in that form. Then we have another division of small particles of matter, which are referred to as atoms. Okay, atoms. So atoms are what we call the smallest particles of matter that, for example, can make a particular substance. For example, elements. We have another group of small particles of matter which we call elements, and these elements are made up of smaller particles which we call atoms. So elements are made up of, so atoms are the smallest particles of matter. The smallest particles of matter are referred to as atoms. And I don't like the definition which says atoms are smallest particles of matter that can take part in a chemical reaction. It seems a good definition, but there are atoms that do not technically take part in reaction. So that definition to me is not completely correct. So I would rather settle for atoms being the smallest particle of matter or the smallest particle of a particular element. Then you have elements or element. An element such as copper is one that is made up of the same sort of atoms. So an element has the same type of atoms that make it. So elements contain the same type of atoms. For example, copper element is made up of copper atoms. Sodium is made up of sodium atoms. Zinc element is made up of zinc atoms. So that is the definition for an element. So element is made up of the same type of atoms.